get them shackles off him. Poor sod can't eat proper.
Dunno, I'm not sure I like that. What if he runs for it? He's worth a heap of coin.
Ah, bollocks. Been holding him a week, hasn't tried a thing. Why he up and bolt now? Matter of fact, got to thinking. What did a sweet, gentle chap like him do to get the Queen of Zericania so riled?
She's a shrew, that's what. Queen and witch in one. Worst of both worlds.
Enough about her. What do you say to one more of your tales? While we toss down some cards.
Ah, why not? And since you mentioned one queen...
Alright, what is up everybody? It's Lyds, and today we are checking out Thronebreaker, which is the single-player campaign of the Gwent card game. And in case you aren't familiar with Gwent, it is the card game based in the Witcher world. And Witcher world is basically a medieval place in which there's magic, monsters, and monster hunters. And a lot of turmoil between a bunch of different kingdoms. I've played a lot of Gwent in The Witcher 3, and a lot of Gwent in the standalone Gwent game, but I've never played Thronebreaker before, I've never seen anyone play Thronebreaker before, so although I've never played Thronebreaker before, I do have a lot of experience with Gwent as a whole. And for all those reasons, I'm excited to get started, so let's give it a look. Let's see, we can choose our difficulty: Adventurer, Battle-Hardened, Thronebreaker. Presumably this is basically just easy, medium, and hard. Let's see, for players who want to sit back, relax, and enjoy the story with the option to skip battles, I think we're going to look to take things a little more seriously than that. For players seeking a moderate challenge and impactful story, it's probably what we're going to go for. Players familiar with Gwent are ready to put their skills to the test. I mean, okay. I don't know if we can switch it if we start on this one and say get it a little bit over our heads, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, so I do believe that perhaps it's a little bit of a visual novel of sorts. I've heard good things about it.
1267. War hung in the air. Its scent palpable. The mighty empire of Nilfgaard stood poised, greedily eyeing the northern realms just across the Yaruga. In light of the threat, the realm sovereigns met in summit. They made declarations, pledged fraternal assistance, forged alliances, and then, in good spirits, dispersed. Among them, Meve, queen of the twin realms Lyria and Rivia. Know the name? Heard her beauty extolled? Justly so. Remarkable she was. Not for her graceful exterior, but for her persistence and courage. Where was I? As the queen and her retinue neared her capital, Count Caldwell appeared. In Meve's absence, the Count was to have helped her son, the youthful Prince Willem, run the Twin Kingdoms. Caldwell had clearly ridden hard. Drops of perspiration dangled from his whiskers, his neck red and chafed from a ruff, starched stiff.
Interesting. Okay, so yes, like I said, I think very much sort of along the lines of a visual novel. I was expecting that I was going to be reading these lines, not that they were going to be voiced, so that's very cool to see that this is voiced. Not sure that's going to be the case throughout the entire game or not. Other thing worth noting here is that for people who are veterans of the multiplayer Gwent game, there are some cards that you immediately unlock upon opening up Thronebreaker, and then through playing the game, you can unlock the premium versions of those cards in the multiplayer game, and that is the only way to get the premium versions of those cards, and many of them are quite good. So, let's take a look here. Oh, other thing worth noting is that I think the cards may actually differ in terms of what they do between the multiplayer Gwent and Thronebreaker, so that is also intriguing to me. Perhaps gives a little bit more value to the game for those of you who are familiar with the Gwent multiplayer game, because cards that you are used to in the multiplayer sense suddenly take on a bit of a new life here. Or at least that's what I've heard. I think. I might be wrong, but we'll see.
Hail, Your Majesty. Delighted to see you in good health. The summit, it ended fruitfully, I hope?
Yes, at its end, letters were exchanged, documents signed. Paper. Time will tell of what value.
Okay. So yeah, we'll have to see just how stable this, I'm not sure if treaty is the right word, but agreements between the Northern Realms proves to be.
That will suffice as cordialities go, Caldwell. Tell me what's happened, for I sincerely doubt sheer longing prompted you to ride out.
And I do believe that Meve here is going to be our main character, but we'll see how things play out here.
Indeed, Your Grace. Another circumstance inspired me to do so.
Okay, and I'm noticing as well, so this is obviously Caldwell here. His sigil looks different from what Meve had, so I believe that presumably means he's from either some different kind of family or kingdom, and so may not technically also be from Lyria/Rivia?
The strays of Sparla, the bandits, I was to tend to during Your Grace's absence. The situation's gotten out of hand, I fear.
Okay. So, other thing here is we do have the option to take, well, several different routes when it comes to our dialogue choices here. So I think this will be one of the key themes, is that this will have a branching storyline of sorts based on what we choose to do here. And, I don't know just how impactful these choices will be. Presumably this one maybe not so much, but that's another thing to keep a close eye on. So let's see. Is it disappointing that these bandits have gotten out of hand? Or is maybe Caldwell overreacting? No, I'd say it sounds like that's pretty disappointing.
I deliberated. Wasn't at all certain in giving you the task. I knew you to be an equally good strategist as I am a shepherdess. So my intuition said no. Yet Reynard interceded on your behalf. Your Grace, they're common bandits, while the Count will have a host of men-at-arms to command.
Okay, so this guy was not going through the area by himself. He had a group of people with him, so presumably he was relatively safe.
Next time, I shall trust my gut.
Maybe.
All right, speak. What has happened? Be precise.
As Your Grace ordained, I set out and was nipping at the bandits' tails for long. We pursued for weeks, until scouts returned, having sighted the strays' camp in the forest near Locheren. We waited for nightfall to surprise them as they slept. Alas, it proved a ruse. We found the tents empty, straw-stuffed dummies round the fire. Soon, we learned that as we waited for the sunset, the strays had snuck away, rounded our positions and ridden to Hawksburn.
Sounds like smart bandits.
I beg your pardon, my lord. The tax collectors. That is where they station.
Okay, and this guy, Reynard, don't really know much about him, but he also has a different sigil here, so it does seem as though, although, I mean, we might still be technically queen of both these two, they're at least not from the royal family, which I suppose probably doesn't come as much of a surprise.
So the gold? All of it?
Yeah, what about the gold? That sounds important.
Stolen, Your Grace, but I shall do all in my power to recover it. This I vow, if it be Your Grace's wish.
That sounds kind of important, yeah?
After weeks in the saddle, Your Grace's wishes are modest. A hot bath and a night's sleep in her own bed. Yet, they shall have to wait. I must look personally to this matter. Your force, Caldwell, I will now command. You... send a herald to Hawksburn. They must prepare for the Queen's arrival. Air the rooms, dust off the porcelain. Make certain they do it.
All right.
Do you see now, Reynard? I believe I foretold it would be thus. My son wasn't ready in the least to rule an entire country.
I confess, Prince Willem has much to learn yet.
Yes. And very little time.
Okay, so welcome to the Thronebreaker tutorial. Before embarking on our adventure, we should get acquainted with the basic gameplay mechanics. Sounds good? So we can control using our mouse to just move around a bit here. Follow the cobblestone road to reach the next stage of our journey. So we will be able to move around like so. And one thing I should note here is that what with this being my first time playing this game and never having watched anyone else play it before, and I'm not following any guides or anything like that, this is going to be a quote-unquote blind playthrough of sorts, and so for that reason, I would say this is less so... I wouldn't call this a guide or a walkthrough by any means, as much as just a first look at what Thronebreaker is like, and hopefully giving you a sense as to whether or not this might be something that is interesting for you to pick up yourself. So, you will expand your army throughout the game, but to do so, you must collect the following types of resources: gold, wood, and recruits. Okay? And looks like, yeah, those are the indicators up here: gold, wood, and recruits, I assume. While on the road, you can use or find useful items and even new companions who will support you in battle. Sounds good. If you don't want to miss anything, be sure to thoroughly explore the map and complete side quests. Yes, so that is another thing that I've just heard through the grapevine, is that there are a lot of things to find as you're walking around, and if you're not careful, you can miss a lot of stuff as well for that reason. But for all those reasons, we'll just want to make sure that we're keeping a keen eye out for various things that we might be able to do. So, like, for example, here shows her clicking on a banner or a tree stump to get wood. Okay, let's see. So, for example, oh, well, I mean, if there are indicators there, that certainly helps. Here's a person. Can we recruit this person? Or steal the wood? No, okay. It's just this. Yeah, a little bit of both wood and coins. Okay, so no real perspective yet as to just how significant picking up what I assume to be relatively minor 19 coins might be. Okay, so these people chatting over here. My guess is that we might be able to get a side quest for them, but let's take the wood and coins there as well. I do like that it, at the very least, gives this indicator here that, yes, there is something of note here, and this dialogue box seems to suggest that we will be able to talk to these people, because, yeah, that way, you know, it's not a huge mystery as to what you can and cannot interact with. You know, you're not running around completely blind. There's some direction you can have with that. You know, it's not like something's going to be super... I mean, maybe there's going to be stuff that's super hidden, but, you know, no games being played. It's not like the game is... It's not the game is not trying to trick us and hide some things unfairly. But let's chat with these people, see what the deal is.
Milka, they stretched her over a fire till she told them where she buried her gold.
That doesn't sound good.
Rather die than tell him she would. But I know where she kept it. Sit tight, sketch it out for you.
Oh, sure. Congratulations, we found a treasure map. Search the area, and you may just find the secret location marked on the map with an X. Well, so much for stuff not being hidden. Well, I mean, obviously we have some directive here. So it looks like some kind of shed with a tree stump, and then the X is right in front of it. There's sort of woods up top. So we'll see. Also, I believe the game does autosave. So that means that, I think it does that. I was just looking at this briefly. Rather regularly, an obstacle blocks your path. To remove it, you need to spend some of your resources. Okay. We may or may not want to do that just yet. I just want to make sure we don't miss the opportunity to find that treasure, because, like we were saying, if you're not careful, you might miss out on some of those opportunities. Like, is it this right here? Yes, it is. Alright. Now, how much are we getting out of this? Whoa! Well, here's a good example. This is, in fact, a premium version of the cards that you... One of the Thronebreaker cards that you get in the multiplayer Gwent game, and so the only way you can get this premium version of this card is by playing Thronebreaker and opening up this chest. So that gives us some good context, I think, as to just how easy or difficult or thorough you need to be in order to get those things unlocked. Of course, this is tutorial, so don't know how indicative that might be of the rest of the game. Let's just make sure we aren't missing anything over here with resources or what have you. It doesn't appear so. So, let's see what the deal is here. Your Majesty, seems someone felled an old oak, which now blocks the road. Unfortunately, our wagons cannot go around it. How do you wish to proceed? And have our loggers sort the matter. Our soldiers should conserve their strength. That would mean we pay some money but gain wood, or we can issue access to the soldiers and put them to work. We lose a recruit, but we gain slightly less wood. So, I mean, the question is really, what do we prioritize more? Do we value coins? Do we value the recruits? And I honestly don't know, because, again, I don't really have the context to know to what extent one of these might be more important than the other, or how easy it might be for us to get one versus the other, or, 25 coins versus one recruit. Is that generally sort of the exchange rate between those two resources? Not sure. At the very least, this one does seem to give us more wood, so maybe that's our tiebreaker. I suppose let's go for this one. And yes, so you'll see we get that autosave in the bottom right corner there, and I do believe that happens fairly frequently. And so I don't believe there's any way to load previous saves in this game, so it does mean that any things that you do are basically permanent. I think, unless you, like, outright restart the game. So that's another thing worth noting, is just that that is potentially a little bit unforgiving if you do find yourself making a mistake that you want to try to, well, redo, undo. It's not so easy to do that. Or if you misclick, then, of course, yikes. But most interactive objects are marked clearly on your map, but not all. Okay, so I was talking about this before. I did like how, for the most part, we could see whenever there was something we can interact with. Some events cannot be predicted. You must be prepared for anything. Okay, that sounds a lot like an ambush.
Rode at the column's head, scanning its flanks with a wary eye that, despite his advanced age, proved very sharp indeed.
Your Majesty! Bandits! There! At the tree line!
The Count's footmen, unaccustomed to escorting their queen, sought to shield her with their bodies and assumed a tight formation to do so. They were promptly knocked aside as Meve charged headlong at the bandits, brandishing her blade and bellowing a ferocious cry.
They weren't expecting her to do that.
Charge!
They're like, oh, we're just going to protect the queen. Did not realize she was going to be charging headfirst into the fight. Alright, Meve was convinced the bandits would flee to cover of the forest upon realizing their grave mistake. After all, no ordinary bandit would dare attack the retinue of the queen. Yet the straves of Spala were of a different breed. They held nothing sacred. Okay, so it's a story battle, a key battle in Meve's story. Unique cards may appear in your hand or deck. Alright. And then unique cards will appear in this battle. Custom deck. Okay, so of course, like I was saying at the beginning, this is still a card game at its core. There's certainly the dialogue components, there's the exploration and looting and resource management components, but in terms of combat at least, this is the way that all the conflicts will be resolved. So, let's start the battle. This is the battlefield. You'll play your cards on the bottom half, and your opponent will play on the top. So, our opponent will have this part up here, and we'll have this part down here. This is a picture of our opponent. This is us. Units can be played on one of two rows, either the melee or range row. But remember, the abilities of some cards may be different depending on the row you play them. So, this is our opponent's range row here. You can see the little crossbow there. This is our opponent's melee row. You can sort of see the sword there. This is our melee row. The little sword indicator is blocked by this little prompt. And then this is our range row down here. So, yeah, abilities will vary depending on the row in which we play cards. A standard battle can last up to 3 rounds. First to win 2 rounds wins the whole match. So, best 2 out of 3. Makes sense. That's the same way things go in the multiplayer Gwent game. And similar to how things go in the Witcher 3 version of Gwent. However, that has 3 rows per side rather than 2. There's a melee, range, and siege row in that case. Players alternate their turns. During your turn, you can play only 1 card, but you can use any number of abilities. Okay? Player who goes first in a match is the same who initiated the battle. Okay, so this is an ambush, so I assume that means they're going first, although then again, Meve kind of just charged straight in, so maybe it's us. In this case, you encountered an ambush, so your opponent will have the first turn. Makes sense. And technically speaking, usually it's an advantage to go second, because you can react whenever your opponent is playing, so, I mean, we'll take that exchange in that case. Let's see.
Ever have a storm knock out one of your team?
So.
To attack the queen? An outrage!
Interesting. The strength of each unit you play adds to your army's total strength. So you'll see it should be this top number here, that 3, is this unit's strength. So they have a total of 3 strength, and you'll see the total number is added up here. In case they have numerous units, then that'll be the go-to number to look at. The player whose army has the most strength points at the end of the round will win the round. So again, trying to accumulate as many points as possible in a given round. If you have more points than your opponent in a round, you win that round. And then best 2 out of 3 wins the whole game, or in this case, battle. Some units have armor. Armor absorbs a certain amount of damage dealt to the unit. So that's that second smaller number below it. So it has 3 power. That dictates how much it contributes toward them winning this round. Whereas the second number below it is the armor, so if we're trying to damage or destroy this unit, then it's going to be able to take 2 points of damage.
Your Grace, the men await. You must lead to begin the attack.
Okay, and interesting that we get some dialogue over there in the bottom left corner as well. Most cards have an ability of some kind. To learn more about it, select the card and read its short description. Additional information will appear if you right-click on the card. Okay. So, shall we do that with the card that they displayed, the Stray's Respala? Let's take a look. So it's 3 strength. It's actually a Stray's Slinger, specifically. It's a 3 power. It's a human. When you deploy means it triggers as soon as you play the card. Move 1 unit to the row opposite this unit and damage it by 1. Okay, so that would mean presumably they're trying to damage our units, right? So, or they played it first, that wasn't really a factor here. Let's see, our 3 cards are Lyrium Siphon, and it will boost, it has 5 strength. It will boost self by 5 if we have Loyal. Trigger this ability automatically when your leader's ability is used. Okay, so this is something that is not existent in the multiplayer Gwent game, so that's new to me. And this card does exist in the multiplayer Gwent game, but does not have this ability. It has a totally different ability. This card does not even exist in the multiplayer Gwent game, so that's entirely new to me. Let's see. Then let's take a look at our other cards. Lyria and Arbalest, another card that does exist in the multiplayer game. When we play it on deploy, it damages an enemy by the number of cards on this row, including self. So that would presumably mean we probably want to play this card at or near the end of a round so we can maximize that damage. Reach 2. Reach is the distance in rows that you can target. Interesting. That is not something that is in the multiplayer Gwent either. So that means we're somewhat limited in where we can play this card and where we can apply that damage. So that's good to know too. And lastly, we have Count Caldwell. And it does make some sense that he's tagging along with us here, but with him being with us in the story as well. So maybe that's the whole quest component that I was talking about before. So he has 8 power, so much bigger in that sense. When we play him, we play a copy of each adjacent unit from our deck. Ooh. Okay, so he also looks like a card that we would want to play toward the end. Ideally, probably last, so that we can basically double up on the other cards that we have out there. And these 2 cards both exist as well in the multiplayer game, but completely different abilities there as well. So yes, does appear as though even cards that may look familiar play totally differently. So let's go with the Lyrium Siphon first, I believe. Although I don't know if we've seen anything on our leader ability just yet, so that may not be so much of a factor here. So I think this will more or less just be a throwaway card of sorts. Or it could be, but we'll play it out here. It's also the card that they gave on that preview.
They'd follow you into fire. You need simply say the word.
Siphon have the Loyal ability, yeah. So this, like I said, is new to me. This means that their other abilities are activated every time you use Meve's ability. Every time. Okay. Each leader has its own unique ability. To learn what it is, just select the leader. Okay. Meve's ability allows her to boost the unit's strength and add armor to it. You can use this ability once every few turns. Okay. Use Meve's ability. First select her, then select one of your units. Okay. So here we see Meve Longsword. Boost an allied by 4 and give it 1 armor. Cooldown 3, so we can use it once every 3 turns, and that's a lot of power. 4, especially if you combine that with the 5 that comes from the Lyrium Siphon. So that seems pretty significant. Let's go for it.
I shall teach you to respect the crown, you dogs.
Wow. So it's all the way up to 14 with 1 armor in 1 turn. Cannot make any more moves. It's time to end our turn. Okay, so remember we can only play 1 card per turn. We can use any of a number of abilities if we have, say, our leader ability or other cards out there that have abilities that we activate by pressing on them or selecting a target or what have you. So now our opponent goes next. Whenever an enemy takes damage, boost self by 1. Okay, so if they have a lot of damage, then this card could become quite dangerous. Let's see what their leader... Oh, they don't have any leader ability. They're not a leader, apparently, in that case. Alright, so now we play any card. And I'm thinking we play the Lyrian Arbalest here, and we, we'll damage by the number of units in the row, in which case we'll only have 2, assuming we play it in the same row as our Siphon. But they both have 2 armor, so it's not really going to do us much good here. I think we do probably hit this guy, and then what we'll do is we'll play Caldwell on our last turn. Help set this up. And there you can see the score again, so at the moment we're leading 17-9.
We are bombarded.
Ooh, but then they had another one of their slingers, which is unfortunate. So our opponent's cards also have abilities. Be sure to read their descriptions carefully and adapt your strategy accordingly. So we deliberately played both our cards in the same row so that we could have Caldwell played in between them, so that way we could trigger this ability for both adjacent units, but as soon as they moved one of their cards, one of our cards, it made it such that, well, now we need to pick and choose which one we're going to go for. Do we prefer the Lyrium Siphon, or do we prefer the Lyrium Arbalest? And I think the Arbalest, as we were saying before, with all the armor that they have, maybe not so great for us to be relying on that, because the damage is not really doing much for us here. So I think we go Count Caldwell in this melee row here, next to our Scytheman.
What? Who dares?
Count Caldwell's ability allows him to summon from the deck copies of the cards that are adjacent to him. His ability is activated the moment he is played. So yeah, that's why we ideally would have had both cards in the same row, played them in between them so we could have played both cards again. But like I said, they moved one, and so we had to pick and choose.
The strays took tail and run.
But as we can see here,
Yes.
we have a pretty sizable
Our victory
lead.
is assured. Sound the horns. May they sing praises of this triumph for ages.
I mean, not sure this is the most significant of victories here, but when we played all of our cards, then end turn button will turn into a pass button. When you pass, you will not be able to perform any actions until the start of the next turn. So basically, the difference between passing and ending your turn is ending your turn means, okay, you're basically passing the torch over, or I shouldn't use the word pass, but you're allowed, when you end your turn, your opponent takes their next turn and you can keep on going back and forth, back and forth. When you pass, that means you are done for the round, and you won't be able to do anything else. You know, your cards may have, say, some passive abilities that they continue to use, or at least that's the case in the multiplayer version. But that's all you're going to be able to have happening once you pass. So, to end last turn of a round, press the coin button and hold it to pass. Player whose army has the most strength points at the end of the round will win the round. And since we went last, that means that when we pass, our opponent has already passed, so when we pass, the round is just over. So whoever has the most strength points at the end of the round will win the round. In the event of a tie, both players receive a victory point. So what that means is, remember, since it's best 2 out of 3, that means if we tie in one round, then it suddenly becomes basically sudden death in round 2.
The battle's not yet done. It is better to conserve our strength. Prepare for a strike that will prove decisive.
And then at the beginning of the second and third rounds, as you can see here, we will draw into 3 additional cards.
Protect the queen!
Player who won the previous round will go first in the next round. Like I said, technically speaking, it is usually advantageous to go second, so we're at a little bit of a disadvantage in that case. We do have our leader ability back here, which means that perhaps it's worth leading off with our Lyrium Siphon, so that way we can immediately get him boosted. And again, we would ideally like to load up on having all of our units in the same row. However, it does seem like they have several cards that will move our cards around, so we could potentially try to go and reverse psychology it a little bit and, say, play some of the cards in the different rows and wait until they move one and suddenly they've actually helped us with their movement, but we'll see. Let's go Lyrium Siphon here first.
Should have listened to me, old lady.
And then let's use our leader ability here. Give it a nice big boost. And that just seems like that is going to be a really great card for us, at least early on. Yep, so there it is. There's the movement. So for that reason, I was kind of tempted to play the Lyrium Siphon in the range row to begin with, and then have them move it into the melee row, and then, and only then, load up on the Lyrium Arbalest there, because remember, these guys have some limit with how they can apply their damage. Damage an enemy unit by the number of cards in this row, including self, but with only reach 2, I think that means if we play it in the range row here, you know, range 1, range 2, I think it's only going to be able to hit things here. Obviously, there's no cards here, so that doesn't do us any good. So I think if we want to do anything at all, we do need to play it here. Otherwise, we won't even be able to hit a target. But of course, 1 damage doesn't do us much good either. Okay. And whenever we take damage, they'll get boosted. And our last card here, the Arbalest. Let's play it in, again, our melee rogue here. And at least on this occasion, we can deal some damage and break through that armor at least a little bit. And this is our last card in this round, so that means we'll be passing here. We have 20 points to 8-point advantage right now. They still have one card remaining, because of course they went second, so we'll see if they can catch us here.
Thing about slings, they hide well.
So they played another Slinger of Spala, and we've won 2 rounds in a row, which means we are the victor. I mean, it doesn't actually need to be 2 in a row, it just needs to be 2 out of 3. But either way, we win.
I congratulate you on your latest victory, Your Grace. The bandits stood not a chance.
It does seem like it. My guess is we'll be facing much stronger opponents later on.
Matters seem indeed to have gotten out of hand, to put it mildly.
Meve said, arms crossed atop her shining breastplate.
They've grown bold. Doubtless after the raid on the manor, the tax collectors. I've not heard of an ambush on the high road afore.
Caldwell explained, avoiding his liege's wrathful gaze.
Enough, Caldwell. We must put things right. Come!
The Queen's retinue set out, cavalry in front, infantry and arbalests close behind, and, following in the rear, the bandits, bound in chains.
Oh, it sounds like we captured them. Also, it does not seem as though Meve has, or holds Caldwell in the highest regard. Okay, so let's see. We are done with the battle, and now there's some wreckage here. Looks like we can claim some things. Wood, some coins. Anything else we can get out of all the wreckage? This here. Oh, do I need to be a little closer, maybe? Here we go. More wooden coins. These just look like dead guys. I think we kind of got thrown straight into this as soon as we walked in this general direction, so just want to make sure we're not missing anything over here, but I think we're good. So I think we carry on. Again, just keeping an eye out for other things popping up.
I do adore this prospect.
Yes. Lyria, the Pearl of the North. With its hills and dales. Why, its beauty matched only by that of its queen.
After 3 weeks
Alright,
in the saddle,
ease off, Caldwell.
I've my doubts, Count. We shall pitch camp here. Our soldiers need respite. A spell of it they deserve.
Alright, to survey our army, we must first pitch camp. Let's give it a shot. Also, a bitter return. Go to Hawksburn. I believe this is maybe just our primary quest at the moment. At least the one that we have currently acted. Pitch camp by pressing the tent button on the left side of the screen. Okay. Is that this one here? Oh no, it's this one down here. Okay. Let's see. Camp buildings allow you to expand your army, and give you access to important information. Sounds important. Most camp buildings can be improved in your workshop. Great music as well. These improvements will give you access to stronger units, thus easing your journey down the line. Does that mean basically stronger cards? Enter the workshop. Alright, let's do it. You can check your main objectives and official correspondence here. Here you can build and improve camp buildings, okay? To improve your camp buildings, you must first collect the appropriate quantity of gold and wood, okay? We obviously did have what seemed to be somewhat sizable amount to begin with, but picked up a little bit of those resources along the way. For your journey, you'll definitely need access to a regional map, but to get it, you'll first need to improve your royal tent. Of course, as everyone knows, you cannot possibly even consider creating a map until you have a nice comfy tent. Upgrade the royal tent to level 2. Okay, looks like it's just a simple 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. So let's see. Check your main objectives and official correspondence here in level 1, then level 2 provides access to a map of your current region. Okay, and then we can see the price of it is 1,000 coins and 50 wood. So we were asking ourselves earlier, okay, is there a difference between how much we should be valuing coins versus wood versus units? And, I mean, that's a pretty sizable chunk of coins, it would seem like, whereas not as big a chunk of wood. Thanks to this improvement, you now have access to the regional map, which you can open from the main game screen. Okay? The workshop itself can also be improved. With each subsequent improvement, you'll gain access to new, stronger units. Okay. Go to the command tent to view your army. Is that this? Here, is this the command tent? Oh, no, that's the command tent. Okay, do we get descriptions of these other places yet? No, I don't think just yet. Let's check out the command tent, though. So, in the command tent, you can create units and build your army from available cards. Interesting. So this is basically like our deck builder of sorts. Improving this building will increase your army's recruit cap, allowing you to use stronger units. Okay, so is this not so much, this unit number in the top right corner, not so much a reflection of the number of units as much as it's more so an indicator of the strength of the units that we have? I mean, from a more like pure gameplay standpoint, maybe? We'll see. From a story standpoint, maybe more so aligned to the number of units, but from a gameplay standpoint, more the quality, at least first impression there, but we'll see. Cards currently in your deck are displayed on the left-hand side, right here in this list, okay? All cards available for you to create and place in your deck are displayed on the main screen, that being this area here. So basically, this is our current deck, and then these are the cards we have available to us that we could potentially include or exclude to modify our existing deck. Gain access to new cards by upgrading your training grounds and workshop, as well as through certain story-related tasks. Grayed out cards are available, but have not yet been created. You must first create them before you can include them in your deck. Okay. So that means these ones that all appear to be grayed out at the moment are theoretically ones that we could add, but we need to create them first before that's even an option. And my guess is we're going to have to use resources to make that happen. Your deck must contain a minimum of 25 cards, while not exceeding your army's recruit cap. Currently, your recruit cap sits at 125 points. Interesting. So these are some similar mechanics to how the multiplayer Gwent works, and that UI, even, you'll have your list of your current deck here, and then options for cards you can add over in this main screen over here, this main section. Then this dictates basically how powerful your current deck is, this 110 out of 125, the maximum power that your deck can have. So we want to get this number up higher so that we can throw in better cards and, of course, get the cards to even make that possible. And then we want to reach the 25 card minimum, which at the moment we're at 24. I'm not even sure how that happened. How were we able to play our previous game then? I don't know. To create new cards, you need a particular resource, recruits. Okay, that answers some of our questions. You can gain recruits at conscription posts, which I'm assuming is the thing that we clicked on earlier when we were exploring that previous village, which are marked on the map with a helmet icon. Yep, as well as through certain story-related tasks. You've received additional resources to recruit a Wegenberg card. Right-click now on the Wegenberg to preview and recruit it. Let's see, so that is this one here. It's a machine field support. Take a closer look. Order, which is an ability that we manually trigger once the card is already on the playing field. And basically, you'll play it. Let's say we play Wegenberg on our first turn. Or I don't know, it might technically be Wagenberg or something like that. I don't know what the correct pronunciation is technically, but I'm going to call it Wegenberg in my super American way. But anyways, so order means you play the card, and then it takes a turn before the card is able to actually use that ability. There's a delay, so it can't just immediately go straight into it. So the order is damage all units on an enemy row by this unit's armor amount, then lose all armor. We also gain 1 armor whenever a card appears on this row. That's very interesting. So that means what we want to do is we want to load up on a ton of units in this, or cards in the same row as this Wagenberg, and that will give it a bunch of armor, and then once we've done that, we can use its order ability to do a ton of damage. A ton of damage, like crazy amounts of damage, I would think. So the potential for this seems very high. We've received additional resources to recruit the Wegenberg card. Right-click now on the Wegenberg to preview and recruit it. So here's our preview. And this is the cost for it. Again, we were asking ourselves, how much do the various resources matter? It seems like maybe the gold is going to be something that we tend to spend more on for the upgrades to our campsite, whereas understandably when it comes to upgrading the actual, or creating the actual cards that go into our deck, we'll still spend some coins, but not nearly as much. Looks like it's going to be much more weighted towards the recruits, which makes logical sense. So are we sure we're willing to pay this price? Yeah, let's do it. Sounds like it could be a good card for us. And we get the dramatic effects from that as we try to make it, and then we click on it to put it into our deck. Now view and create new cards, or return to the main game screen to continue our journey. So, we do of course have additional resources here, so if we liked what we see here with any of these other cards, then we could make a point of creating them now and putting them into our deck. However, as we were just talking about before, we were sitting on 110 out of 125 in terms of our total power of our deck relative to the maximum amount of power we could have in our deck. And after throwing in that 15 Wegenberg, we are now at our maximum amount. So theoretically, there are some creative ways you could still manufacture a more interesting, potentially more powerful deck, even when you still have that same limit, this 125 here. And that's where a lot of the more expertise of the deck building comes into play. But at least for right now, given how it's still certainly early in the process, and we will hopefully later on gain access to, or at least gain the ability to create new cards, why don't we save our resources for the time being and see if there's perhaps other cards later on that we might prefer to make, or other upgrades we want to make at camp. So, we can now take a look at other camp buildings to familiarize ourselves with their functions, or we can return to the main game screen to continue our journey. Let's take a look at the other buildings just to see what they're all about, get a general lay of the land. So the Royal Tent. Royal Tent, we can view the letters and maps we've received so far, as well as keys and card fragments. So of course, we recently made an upgrade to our camp that allowed us to even have access to the camp. Royal Tent screen can also be accessed from the main game screen by pressing the knapsack icon. Okay, I will almost certainly forget that. So we have some letters. Royal Steward letter. Your Highness, artisans from Radibor have prepared a new tapestry pattern for the throne room. I've included an engraving of the design. You will be pleased with it, I hope. A Centurion lion inherited from King Coram I. Bared fangs offer stunning realism, and the ancestral sword of the Delans of Temeria appear as if forged in the very depths of Mahakam. I've no doubt it shall prove the castle's latest masterpiece. We eagerly await your return, my lady. Gustave Perrault, Royal Steward. Okay? And, yeah, looks nice. And a letter from King Demavend, who, based on, my memory from The Witcher 2, is the King of Edirn, which is another one of the Northern Realms, so one of our neighbors and one of the people who we presumably were having those discussions with, as we were here at the beginning of the game. Dear Meve, you've my gratitude for attending the summit. What luck we did not put off our meeting any longer. From what my men say, armies on the march are kicking up a veritable dust storm across the Yaruga. Come what may, remember, you have my full and unconditional support. Best wishes, Demavend. Sounds like he's, ready to support us and be an ally. I mean, we'll see. Talk is one thing. Actually sending us soldiers to help us in the fight is maybe another, but good indication at the very least. Let's see, then we have reports. Noted. Increased Nilfgaardian activity in foothills of Amel Mountain and near Ridebrunn. Ambassador claims routine training exercises. Number of troops, quality of equipment indicate otherwise. Recommends strengthening border forces and tripling patrols along the Yaruga. Okay, so Nilfgaard is not one of the Northern Realms. It is the largest kingdom, in fact, or technically empire, that is to the south of the Northern Realms. Surprise, surprise. And is, well, ready to pick a fight, it would seem. And ready to storm over the Yaruga, which is basically the river that divides Nilfgaard from the Northern Realms. Then report Strays of Spala, which is the type of bandits we were just fighting. Strays of Spala bandit group formed after a revolt in dungeons of Spala Castle. Mainly pickpockets, racketeers, cut-purses, assassins, armed with slings, daggers, instruments of torture stolen from Spala, headsmen axes, saws, hammers, cleverer and bolder than common bandits, attack heavily armed convoys, like us, noblemen's mansions, unable to determine identity of group's leader. Okay, good context. That seems like that's everything in this area. Then lastly, we have the mess tent. Take a look here. You can talk to your companions in the mess tent. Give them a little bit of your time, and you may just learn a secret or two. Okay. So here we have Reynard.
A bit of respite, Reynard.
Reynard. I don't know how much that is for accent or what. But...
Yes, but if you've any new orders, Your Grace, I can be ready at any...
He's like, oh, well, let's see. I'm totally ready. I'm not just getting drunk in the tavern.
At ease, Reynard. At ease.
Okay, so again, we have options here in terms of what we can say. We can just leave immediately. So, Willem is our son, and it seems as though we are basically trying to groom him to be a good king, but things, at least at the beginning here, seem to not be going terribly well from what people have been hinting at. So we could just outright say that he's not suited to be king, or could instead focus on, well, you know, might be getting kind of lonely over there. I don't know how quickly we want to jump to conclusions criticizing our own son here. Maybe we wait a little bit on going that route.
Don't you find it wearisome sitting alone? Wouldn't you prefer another's company? Swapping tales with the innkeep, even?
Your concern, I most appreciate, Your Grace. But I prefer silence.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Has it always been thus with you? Ever a man apart?
Quite the contrary, Your Grace. As a youth, I gloried in company, delighted in conversation.
But then I took an arrow to the knee. Everything changed.
So what was it that changed you?
I swear if he says that.
That delight nearly cost me my head. But do you truly not know the tale, milady? How I came to be your departed husband's aide?
I don't. But would gladly hear it.
I had but 20 winters behind me when I enlisted. Yet I was granted the rank of lieutenant from the start, not by merit, but by birth. The respect of veteran officers, both my peers and seniors, that they could not grant. Nor did I deserve it.
Okay. So you kind of jumped straight up in the ranks? Not so deservedly, in your opinion?
To earn that respect became my driving aim. And to seem wise beyond my years, I began spouting off about the king's decisions. This maneuver Reginald botched. That he failed to think through, and yet elsewhere he'd blundered like a schoolboy.
Okay, then you got all critical of the king, which was maybe not the best way to make friends. Let's see, we can say, well, the king did make some mistakes, or we could say, that was not the smartest of ideas to criticize the king. I mean, to be honest, that was my first impression. But, yeah, it does seem like the left side options, I don't know if there's going to be a general theme in terms of what the idea behind the left side options are going to be versus the right side, because thus far, both times, the left side has been very much focusing on criticizing our own family. I think Reginald is thought by that means he was our husband, and it sounded like he's died, and so we're queen. We have our son, Willem, who is the either already king or king to be. But, yeah, I'm not quite ready to start throwing around all these accusations. Well, I mean, then again, I suppose this is sort of accusing him of being silly. But he's readily admitted that, maybe it wasn't the smartest of things for him to have done, so... then again, okay, we'll be nice to him for now.
A brilliant strategist Reginald was not. They dubbed him the courageous, not the cunning, for good reason, I dare say.
It was not long before I was clanking about in shackles. Another officer had reported me. I was charged with lèse-majesté.
Oh. Yeah.
The court-martial took but a quarter of an hour to deliver verdict and sentence. I was guilty of treason.
Oh.
And the noose awaited me.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty serious.
But Reginald first stayed the execution, then ordered that I repeat every word I'd uttered about his person or deeds. Soaked with sweat, my voice cracking, I did as he ordained.
Good memory. To be honest, in that situation, I probably would not be able to remember what I had said.
Reginald listened, raptly and silently. And when I'd finished, he declared I was right. He then appointed me his personal aide. A clever lad like you, I can always use at my side.
Wow. That's a twist.
Indeed. Though hardly sharp himself, wisdom in others Reginald both recognized and heeded.
It was then I swore two things. Firstly, never again to wag my tongue like a fool. Secondly, never to betray his trust.
Alright. Sounds like a good lesson to be
And
learned.
he never did. Know what he told me moments before he passed? Trust none of them, Meve. Save Reynard. The
Aww.
old sod was right about that, at least.
That's sweet.
I thank you for sharing that tale, Reynard. Truly.
Alright. Oh, then, so, in totally different sort of branch of dialogue, it seems, the whole Willem may not be ready to be king. So, interesting. Sure. I suppose in that case, if this does lead us down a totally different path, why not?
Alas. I've come to fear Willem might simply not be cut out to be a king, let alone a good one.
A harsh judgment, your grace. Let's not be hasty. The prince is but 16 summers to him.
That is tough. Being a king that young. Not a lot of experience in the world, let alone the matters of kingly importance.
And is thus fully grown. The crown he should be able to bear at his age.
I suppose. Suppose in the Middle Ages that was not that young.
Yet I left the land in his care for but a few months, and look
What with
what's
people
become
tending
of
to
it.
die earlier?
Bandits roam and loot unchecked.
People just grew up faster those days, you know? It's totally the way it worked.
We might yet learn of mitigating circumstances. Events beyond his control.
Would that it were so, Reynard. Would that it were so. Elsewise, we must hope Ansaeus will demonstrate more wit than his brother. Though I see little chance of that, either.
Ansaeus. That is a name that I recognize from The Witcher 3, in fact, and does have a Gwent card as well, so perhaps we'll be seeing more of him later on. Okay, so that seems like everything we can do with this conversation here with Reynard, and I don't know if we're always going to have a specific person we can talk to in this, what was this, the mess hall, or perhaps at times possibly even multiple people.
It's time I attended to other matters.
I should go. So that's Reynard. Oh, no, there are multiple people here, at least Grey Rider as well. So here we can see, that's the sigil for Reynard. That's a different one for the Grey Rider. Let's see, statistics? Is this just basically always going to be a way for us to get additional information about our playthrough? Perhaps not actually a conversation, so to speak. Yeah, that seems like that may be the case. Okay, let's head back then. And I believe that means we've now taken a look at all of our various buildings here in our camp. Of course, we could go back to the workshop and potentially make additional upgrades with our additional resources here. But let's exit our camp. And remember that we can open our map by clicking on the compass rose icon to the left side of the screen, which is this. Let's take a look here. Our primary task is marked with the exclamation point. See what awaits next, scroll through the map. Okay, so let's take a look around here. So this is, I assume, where we currently are, our current location. And then the golden chest here is the one that we found where we got the premium version of, I think it was Reynard's card. And this does sort of mimic the path that we took here. We started there, walked around, this is where we fought those bandits, now we're right here. So then next is the main quest here. We can open the legend as well. Current location, yep. Notice board. I don't think we've seen any of those. Main quest over here. Point of interest. I don't know if we explore greater distances or look further distances across the map, and we'll start to see some of those, or perhaps only once we actually go to those general areas. This looks big, whatever that place is. Fast travel spots. Don't think we have any of those yet, or battles or puzzles. Many of these things probably only the types of things that we'll start to see once we actually get to new areas. But that being said, let's take a look at the main quest here. Close legend as well. Or, I don't know if we can actually, we may not even be able to travel there from this, because we, of course, don't have any fast travel spots at the moment. This is more so just for general guidance. Alright, but I think that's a good place for us to wrap up here. That is a look at a general overview of what the start of Thronebreaker, the campaign for Gwent, is all about. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below and let me know if you are interested in seeing more of Thronebreaker, or if all you wanted to do was get a general sense as to what the game is all about, because, well, if you'd like to see a full Let's Play on it, then perhaps we can make it happen. That being said, I'll catch you next time.